The jury goes into day 3 of deliberations in the Rittenhouse case, and a new allegation comes up from the defense over the need for a mistrial. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on in Kenosha, but honestly, with 12 people just sitting in a room, there's not a lot to talk about. But we will continue to talk about what's going on there. In other news, Paul Gosar is censured for, well, being as cringy as he possibly can be. Well, that's not the reason that they gave, but that's really the reason that we should be thinking about why he's censured. But he's also removed from committee assignments, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene was. So we'll talk a bit about that and the importance of what went on with that, and some of the fireworks that went with that as well. In other news, Ted Cruz attempts to repeal the bipartisan tax bill's effective tax on crypto. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. And the professor, it's okay to be attracted to minors. Yeah, he got removed from his university, so we'll talk a bit about that. It is going to be all this and more. Let's go, Brandon. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and boy, oh boy, has it been an interesting 24 hours in the news, let me tell you, especially with the censure vote coming back out, and the fact that, yes, we are going into day 3 of the deliberations, which tells me there is going to be a lot of arguments, and we might even come out and see a hung jury coming out of this, but, well, we've got a lot to go over and a lot to talk about with it, and we got to get right into it as well. And I don't know if it's the cold weather or if it's just maybe I am getting a little bit sick. I'm not sure, but I keep oversleeping. Like, I woke up at like 10 to 7 this morning after going through 2 alarm clocks. I've got one set for 5 and one set for 6, and I don't know how. Maybe I just shut off the 6 one, but I rolled over and looked over, and it was 10 to 7. I'm like, shit. And we still have to go organize tabs. I did have all the tabs set up. I just had to go back and organize them here. But I am going to push myself to do better off of this. There is no jury duty coming up this coming week either for me. They pushed it back a week, I'm thinking because of Thanksgiving. So we'll be here all next week. And I'm going to see if I can find enough people to fill back in for the week after. I know Steven is always eager to come back and do it. But I don't want the full schedule to fall to him either, because he has got a lot to do. He's really busy himself as well. So, we will make sure that we have something coming up here for coming up in 2 weeks. And that's going to be just a possible temporary stand-in, because I know that the day that I walk into the courtroom and they start interviewing me, well, I'm wearing a Gadsden flag mask, and by the way, masks are required in the courthouse, and, well, I only own one mask. And it's got the Gadsden flag on the front. So, mea culpa, mea ultima culpa. I'm probably not going to get picked for jury duty. And if they do try to anyway, well, I know the words jury nullification. So that's your update on that. Let's get down into it. Let's go. Let's talk about what's happening here. But before we get started, let's make sure that we head on over and check out turnsofpagesproductions.com, where you can go and, well, where you'll be able to go and find great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The Porch Boys. Go and check them all out. They're all great friends of Liberty. Great friends of freedom and great places to go and get your news. The R-Rated Conservative should be coming back fairly shortly. I still have to go in and watch his video, by the way, because I know that he put one out at some point here while I was looking into things. So definitely go and check all those shows out. You'll start probably getting live notifications from the R-Rated Conservative, which will be really awesome. I'm not sure when or if the Freckles and Brit show is going to be coming back. I know that they've got a lot to talk about as well, but we do want to carry all those shows because they've all been great friends to everybody across here. And if you want to support us more directly, we are looking for approximately $2,000 to get startup costs taken care of here over on turnsofpagesproductions.com. We have a GoFundMe set up, plus any subscriptions, any buy me a coffees, anything that you do over on my channels will go directly into the coffers of this. So let's get this up in the chat for you guys here. There you go, if you guys want to donate, or even share this link out. I mean, it's not just about the donating. The more people have their eyes on this, the more people are going to check out the website when it launches, and the more people are going to be apt to say, hey, I like independent journalism, so get that link, share it as widely as you possibly can, as often as you can, and see if we can't fill those last $1,400. All right, let's get into finance here, which has reset because somebody, might be me, was really late getting to the table this morning here. But looking at the Dow Jones from yesterday, the previous close was way the hell up here yesterday. So it wasn't. It was down to here. Regardless, the Dow spent almost the entire day yesterday in a downswing. Previous close is now down to 35,931.05. Wow, I can really talk this morning. 35,931.05 is where we're going to be starting at from the day, which means that it had a drop, and we are back down below 36,000 once again. And I don't know where this is going to go going into the holidays. I mean, they keep telling me everything is fine, everything is great, everything is wonderful, but I start to question that as we come in here and we start to see this here. But, you know, it's on the investors at this point. It's what they're comfortable buying. It's what they're not comfortable buying. Your Bitcoin, on a refresh from last night, is down to 59.19 and 90. $59,019 US dollars and 90 US cents. That has been on the downswing as well, and I completely slipped my mind as to why that probably is here. And we'll be talking about it later on. But I know that Ted Cruz is trying to repeal the effect on the crypto industry because, yes, all of your crypto transactions are going to be taxed out the ass at this point. So I'm going to see a lot of people coming back up out of this here. Once the government gets their hands into something, they wreck it every single time. So we will see what happens with that, but that appears to continuing on the downswing. Looking at your industrials, copper on the average is down, steel is on the average up, aluminum is on the average way down. Holy shit. Looking at your individuals, copper is down all the way across the board. Everything with copper is on the downswing. Steel BX is down. Light iron is up. Number one steel is up. Cast iron is up. Rotors are up. Complete car is up. Shreddable steel is up. Stainless steel is down. You know what I'm curious about? Because they say complete car and they mix that in with the steel off of this. I wonder how that goes for the F-150 made after 2015. Does that go on the same price? Not that a lot of F-150s made after 2015 should be being scrapped right now, but does that fall in on the same price? Or is that going to be something completely different? Things I think about while I'm in the shower. That and Ashley Tisdale. On your aluminum, siding is down. Aluminum copper fin radiators are down. Regular radiators are up. Cans are down. Sheet aluminum is down. Aluminum rims are down. On your other plays, electric motors are down, ballasts are up, lead is up, car and truck batteries are up. All catalytic converters remain on the upswing here, so if you can get your hands on a catalytic converter right now, it's probably the time to go and bring that in. I was doing a jog one day back in the spring. I did a big loop around the town that I live in, and on the way back, there's just a random catalytic converter laying on the side of the road. Just randomly laying on the side of the road. And it must have been hot because I was probably 2 miles from home, so I finished my run home, went out and got in the truck, going over to pick the thing up, and by the time I run 2 miles and got back to that point, it was gone. So somebody was looking for that thing. Compressors are down, or up rather, alternators are down, carbide is down, and hard drives, motherboards, and power supplies are all up. Looking for chip supply once again. Let's see what IBD has to say about this. On the stock market today, Dow Jones futures rise as Nvidia, Macy's lead, Rivian, Lucid stock extend losses. From Ed Carson, Dow Jones futures rose slightly early Thursday, while S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures climbed modestly. Nvidia and Macy's were big earnings winners. Before the open, the stock market rally retreated Wednesday despite the positive moves from Apple stock and Tesla. Tesla rebounded even as Rivian Automotive sold off, falling for the first time since the Rivian IPO last week. Lucid Motors retreated after the Lucid stock soared Tuesday. Both Rivian and Lucid stock retreated overnight. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with some of these EV startups. Whether they have the staying power to stay in like Tesla did. Tesla definitely has staying power. That's because their CEO is quite eccentric, but he's very good at what he does. But if Rivian and Lucid can do the same here, or if GM and Ford are going to come out and be the ones who take over that market. Another thing that I think about while I'm in the shower, other than Ashley Tisdale. Apple cleared a buy point. Nvidia, Cisco Systems, Sonos, Bath & Body Works, and Victoria's Secret reported earnings after the close. Nvidia stock popped 8% in overnight trade after Nvidia earnings and revenue topped views. Nvidia stock fell 3.1% to $292.61 on Wednesday. AMD climbed 3% in pre-market trade after dipping 0.7% on Wednesday. Both Nvidia and AMD are consolidating at record highs after sharp moves over the past several weeks. Cisco sank 6% overnight. Cisco earnings edged past views, but revenue and guidance were weak. Cisco stock dipped 0.4% to $56.76 on Wednesday, now with a handle in its cup base, giving it a $58.73 buy point. Arista Networks edged higher early Thursday at the Cisco networking rival works on a shelf. Sono climbed 2% in extended trade after closing down 3%. High-end smart speaker maker Sonos missed on earnings and revenue and gave bullish outlook. Sonos stock could reclaim the 50-day line and perhaps test recent short-term resistance, but investors might want to see a move above the 200-day line before taking an early entry. BBWI stock rose 5% overnight after Bath & Body Works earnings topped views in its first report since the L brand split into BBWI and VSCO. BBWI could clear a mini consolidation, close to being a tight pattern, slightly above a double bottom base that could offer an add-on buy point or aggressive entry. Isn't VSCO the new Instagram? The e-thottery Instagram where the girls can't see all their likes and stuff? I know I have it. I don't know why. I never use it, but I have it. VSCO stock surged 11% overnight. Victoria's Secret earnings results were mixed. After initially surging in early August on the spinoff, VSCO stock fell sharply but could break a trend line Thursday morning and get above its 50-day line, offering an aggressive entry. Early Thursday, Chinese e-commerce giant JD.com topped earnings views, while larger rival Alibaba missed profit and revenue targets as they tried to break a long slump. JD.com stock rose 2% before the open, while Alibaba stock sank 5%. Macy's and Kohl's easily beat EPS views, while revenue and guidance were also strong. Macy's, already slightly extended, jumped 10% before the open, also is on tap. Kohl's stock leapt 8%, moving back towards a buy point. So, a lot of stuff moving and shaking, and I'm not surprised to see like JD.com, Alibaba, Neo, Xpeng, stuff like that suffering right now because, I mean, we're sitting here talking about 6.2, 6.3, 6.8% inflation month over month as we continue to go on, and some of the investors are starting to accept the fact that, hey, this might not be as transitory as we thought it was. But China? 13+% inflation month over month. They're hurting over there right now. More than they will let you know. Tesla, Nvidia, and AMD are on the IBD leaderboard and the IBD 50. Apple and Lilly stock are on Swing Trader. Apple stock was Wednesday's IBD stock of the day on your futures. Dow futures were 0.1% above fair value, even with Cisco stock being a drag. S&P 500 climbed 0.3%, NASDAQ 100 rose 0.55%, helped by Nvidia. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right, that's what we see coming out of that. Let's grab one from CNBC. And then we'll get into the main news of the day. From CNBC, stocks rise, led by tech shares as Nvidia soars. From Maggie Fitzgerald. U.S. stocks rose after Nvidia, the world's most valuable chip maker, reported better than expected third quarter results and gave a positive outlook. Dow futures rose 24 points or 0.07%, S&P 500 futures gained 0.2%, and NASDAQ 100 futures rose 0.5%. Trading has been choppy this week, with the major averages mostly wavering around the flat line, but S&P and NASDAQ are still on track for positive week and are sitting less than 1% from their records. Dow was 1.7% from its record. Nvidia shares popped more than 8% in pre-market trading after beating on the top and bottom lines of its quarterly results and issued a bullish revenue forecast for the current quarter ending in January. The chipmaker reported, that's a typo on CNBC's part, a 55% gain in data center sales from the same period a year ago, and its biggest market, gaming, reported a 42% sales increase. Those gains helped lift other chip stocks in early morning trading. AMD gained 2%, while Skyworks and Micron added more than 1%. And that's going to be interesting too, because we're sitting in a chip shortage, and I'm sure that the automakers are looking to not just their regular chip makers out of Malaysia and Taiwan, but also going into now some of the domestic ones like Nvidia, AMD, stuff like that. Anything they can get their hands on for right now, AMD, Nvidia, Skyworks, Micron, those are all, any chips that they have out there are going to be gone as soon as they hit the shelf. Proverbially speaking, of course, they go into a bin, basket, or whatever it is when they go out there. They don't actually go onto a shelf. They become available, and places like General Motors, Rivian, Lucio, and etc. just click, 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 click. Give me them chips. But I'm interested to see also what happens when all that catches up, especially if people are continuing not to go to work or coming off the workforce and not able to go out and buy the new cars once they start rolling off the line again. That could be a pretty sharp drop coming up in the far future. But we'll see what happens and we'll see where it goes. Let's get into the big news of the day, and we're going to start today with our friends over at NPR. Day 2 of deliberation in the Rittenhouse trial ends, again, without a verdict. This is from Becky Sullivan, and remember, NPR needs our money, comrade. They need those sweet, sweet dollar bills to buy microphones that they can quietly tell you how to make your life more communist, more progressive. It's not your money, comrade. It's our money, and our taxpayer money is not enough. So make sure, comrade, that you hit that donate button, because they need our money until they can force the government to take all of our money and give it straight to NPR. They need you to do it voluntarily. So make sure you hit that donate button. NPR, never printing reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. As the jury deliberated for a second day at the criminal trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, the 18-year-old who fatally shot 2 people during unrest last year in Kenosha, defense attorneys petitioned for a mistrial over a key piece of evidence that could be crucial to the prosecution's case. The mistrial request, which is the defense's second of the trial, came Wednesday afternoon after jurors asked to review a handful of videos from the case. That included a video introduced by prosecutors halfway through the trial, filmed by a drone from roughly a block away. The footage shows an overhead view of the first deadly incident on the night of August 25, 2020, in which Rittenhouse fatally shot Rosenbaum after being chased through a used car lot. The video, which was shown to the jury during prosecutors' closing statements on Monday, is a key to their argument that Rittenhouse provoked the encounter with Rosenbaum by pointing his AR-15-style rifle near him, prompting him to chase Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse testified that he feared Rosenbaum would steal his gun and use it to shoot him. The jurors spent 46 minutes Wednesday reviewing the drone video and other video evidence, including another recording of Rittenhouse's encounter with Rosenbaum, filmed from overhead by an FBI aircraft. The crux of the defense's mistrial request Wednesday was a difference in video quality between the prosecution's version of the drone video file and what was given to Rittenhouse's attorneys. Although the footage had appeared on Fox News during an interview with Rittenhouse's original defense attorney just days after the shooting, neither prosecutors nor Rittenhouse's current lawyers had been able to track it down before the trial began. Then, halfway through the trial, the person who refused to give his name came to the prosecutor's office in Kenosha County with the video, said ADA James Krause in court on Wednesday. Prosecutors conceded that the video file was inadvertently compressed when they attempted to send it to Rittenhouse's defense team. The file size, according to Natalie Wisco, a defense lawyer, had shrunk from 11.2 megabytes to 3.6, an indication that the file had lost some of its visual quality. Defense lawyers said they did not realize there was a difference until after the testimony ended last week. We would have done this case a little bit different manner if this was the situation where we didn't have the quality of evidence the state had until the case had been closed, defense attorney Corey Shirafisi, as he called for a mistrial. Shirafisi said that they would ask for a mistrial without prejudice, meaning that, if granted, Rittenhouse could be tried again. But then I think we'll have all the same information, the same quality of videos, and I think that is required in a case like this, where he's looking at a life sentence, potentially without parole if he's convicted, he said. And to not get that until the evidence has already been closed, that doesn't strike me as fair. Prosecutors called the difference unintentional. Prosecutors replied that it was an honest mistake, that the defense lawyers were only objecting now because Rittenhouse testified that he had not pointed his gun at anybody until after Rosenbaum began to chase him. We didn't compress anything, we didn't change anything. That would have been something that that happened in the transfer that we have no knowledge of. We, of course, did not mean to give them a different copy, said Krause. Judge Schrader said he had qualms about the video, but still allowed jurors to review it. He did not rule on this mistrial request. My view on it now is, where we are, we might as well follow through with it, and if they've got everything correct and it's reliable, then we don't have a problem, and if it isn't, it'll be ugly, Schrader said. Jurors also asked Wednesday to review several other videos, including bystander footage of Rittenhouse shooting Anthony Hoover, 26, and Gage Grosskreutz, then 26, a video filmed by Grosskreutz as he spoke briefly to Rittenhouse in the moments after the shooting. Rosenbaum, Grosskreutz, survived the shooting, but Hoover was killed. They have not yet reviewed that footage. Jurors deliberated for about 7.5 hours Wednesday, after roughly 8.5 hours of deliberation on Tuesday. Deja Vishny, a criminal defense attorney based in Wisconsin who is not involved in the case, said lengthy deliberations are not unusual. With this many counts, it's not a surprise that they have come to a lengthy period of discussion, Vishny said. Rittenhouse faces 5 felony counts for the shootings, the most serious charge. First-degree intentional carries a mandatory sentence of life in prison. Jurors may also consider lesser versions of the charges related to Hoover and Grosskreutz. When jurors consider lesser charges in Wisconsin, they must first attempt to reach a unanimous conclusion on the most serious charge. Vishny said only when they cannot can they move on to the second most, then the third most. That can be a very time-consuming process, she said. The defense had previously called for a mistrial after lead prosecutor Thomas Binger was admonished by the judge for 2 lines of questioning while cross-examining Rittenhouse. The judge has not yet ruled on that motion. So right now there's a motion for mistrial on or with prejudice, meaning he can't be retried, and then a motion for mistrial without prejudice, which means he can be. And the jurors are still going. It's interesting, and of course, none of the mainstreams that I will cite from have been able to say this because that would be devastating to their narrative, but it's also been widely reported through citizen journalism and social media that the prosecuting attorneys had Handbrake on their computers, which is video editing software. I don't know if that's true or not. If it is true, that raises the question as to whether the compression, the lower quality version, was intentional. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it was intentional. There are a lot of boomers that are working on this case on both sides, so I have no idea when and where this goes. I don't know. The thing with it is the technically same video. But there again, I mean, with the pinch to zoom and everything else that went along with that, all I saw was little blobs. But I want to talk just a second about the, what this is supposed to mean. Because this seems to be what Binger's case hinged on at the end of it. Did you instigate? Did you point a rifle at somebody that didn't want a rifle pointed at them? Said Thomas Binger as he went across through this. As he did his line of questioning. And that seemed to be what closed off of this too. Well, Kyle Rittenhouse pointed his rifle. He pointed his rifle, and that's what started this entire thing. I'm going to tell you right now, if I was in the dark, in a dangerous situation, such that Rittenhouse was in, and I came around the corner to see somebody brandishing a handgun, I would probably point my handgun back at him. It's instinct. If I had the time, without knowing that I was going to get shot, to get a handgun back out, or in Rittenhouse's case, already have his hand on the rifle, and you come around the corner seeing somebody brandishing a handgun, seemingly knowing where I'm going to be coming back out of, that's what really bothers me the most off of this. Zeminski had the handgun out as Rittenhouse came down the road. I would have a lot of questions as to whether or not I got, especially if it was one of my friends that called me down there. I have a lot more questions for Mr. Black at this point. Because the more and more I see of this, the more setup-y it sounds. According to the testimony, Mr. Black calls Mr. Rittenhouse. Mr. Black, at one point dating Mr. Rittenhouse's sister, Mr. Black calls Mr. Rittenhouse, hey, come down here. Come put out fires. Mr. Rittenhouse comes down with a fire extinguisher, comes down out of the dark and right on the other side of the fence from the car source 2 is a residential house, which I believe had its lights off. So he's coming back in out of the dark, comes around the corner, around the fence, he's a guy with a gun, after being called down there to put out fires. Zeminski should have taken a stand. But that's what we see coming out of that. Let's go to Fox News. Rittenhouse defense demands mistrial over drone footage. Judge hints at new evidence hearing. From Michael Ruiz. A dispute over Wisconsin drone video used in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial prompted the teenage defendant's attorneys to move for mistrial Monday and double down on Wednesday, the second day of jury deliberations, in a case that could result in imprisonment. Rittenhouse's defense attorneys, Mark Richards and Corey Shirafisi, said persecutors gave them a 3.6 megabyte version of a drone video, while the version they kept for themselves had amounted to 11.2 megabytes. They said the resolution of the file they received came in at 480 by 212 pixels compared to 1920 by 844 in the prosecution's file. They argued that the prosecution did not turn over the full resolution video until 2 days before closing arguments began and after the time to turn over evidence had closed. During the jury instructions conference, the defense played their version to the court to review. The attorneys wrote in a motion to dismiss on Monday. The state indicated that their version was much clearer and had their tech person come into court to review the clear video. They asked the judge to declare the case a mistrial with prejudice, which could preclude a retrial. Nima Rahmani, a former federal prosecutor, said he doubted Judge Schrader would accept the defense's initial mistrial request. Almost no chance the motion is granted, he told Fox News Digital. Discovery violations can result in sanctions, exclusion of evidence, and adverse jury instructions, but dismissal with prejudice is the last resort. On Wednesday, the defense team asked for a mistrial without prejudice, meaning a new trial would remain a possibility based on the miscommunication over the drone video. They're probably asking for that alternative because they know the motion will never be granted with prejudice, Rahmani said. Judge Schrader told attorneys he would have to wait until the jury requests the drone video to rule on a potential mistrial. But Rittenhouse's defense countered that it was moving forward with requests regardless. The prosecution contended Wednesday it did not mean to give the defense a more compressed version of the drone video, adding it had only happened because it was transferred from an iPhone to an Android phone. They could have asked for a thumb drive, they could have asked for whatever, Assistant District Attorney James Krause said. We're not responsible for that. Schrader said that a new evidentiary hearing may be necessary to get to the bottom of the dispute. We can't resolve this now because this is going to require expert testimony from people, the judge said. Separately, the jury, during its second day of deliberations, requested a different video that was shown during the trial. A computer was being wiped to add videos the jury can view. On Wednesday, the jury requested to review the drone video at the heart of the dispute. Between prosecutors and the defense team, the jury also requested to see the live stream by Gage Grosskreutz, who was shot by Rittenhouse once in the arm. Failure to share evidence equally can lead to wrongful convictions, LA-based defense attorney Joseph Lowe IV told Fox News Digital on Wednesday. Lowe accused the Kenosha persecutors of serving their egos and looking good in front of the press. Yeah, this is going to be interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see if there is a retrial off of this, if it's dismissed without prejudice, if these same two are going to be off this, because honestly, I could see at least one of them being disbarred, if not both of them. They had a sloppy case at best, and at the very least, it looked to me like they were trying to throw this case. It looked a lot like they were trying to throw this case, but I guess we'll have to see where this goes. Here's an interesting piece from Channel 3000 out of Madison. Rittenhouse case raises question, what makes a fair trial? From Amy Forliti, Gene Johnson, and Todd Richmond of the Associated Press. And we'll be talking about them a little bit later on too. At one point, the 18-year-old murder defendant stood behind the seated black-robed judge and peered over him to review evidence. At another, on Veterans Day, the judge led the jury and others in the courtroom in applause for veterans as a defense witness who served in the Army was about to testify. And as the case neared its conclusion, the judge permitted the defendant to draw numbers from a raffle drum to determine which jurors would serve as alternates, creating the appearance, however small, that the defendant was helping administer his own trial. As Rittenhouse's trial played out in the Kenosha courtroom, Circuit Judge Bruce Schrader, moments of apparent deference to the defendant have struck many observers as curiously different from how murder proceedings often unfold. Schrader addressed some of the observations Wednesday, saying people should have confidence in the outcome of the trial. He called some coverage of the case frightening. Schrader, the longest-serving circuit judge in Wisconsin, said he's been letting defendants draw jury alternates numbers for an estimated 20 years. He explained Wednesday that he started doing it after the trial of a black man, where there was only one black person on the jury, and that the person was dismissed after the court clerk drew the juror as an alternate. Schrader said that while there was nothing wrong with the way the alternate was picked, the optics looked bad. Since then, he's had an almost universal policy of having defendants draw the alternates. Legal experts say that might be unconventional, but not necessarily wrong. Schrader said he hasn't had any complaints in this case and suggested that those who were dissatisfied were trying to undermine the results of the trial. But if the judge had let jurors in clapping as a persecution witness took the stand, making that witness seem more laudable or credible, it would surely be grounds for defense attorneys to appeal a conviction, noted Robert Weisberg, Faculty co-director of the Criminal Justice Center at the Stanford Law School, prosecutors, however, can't appeal a not guilty verdict. Well, they can, actually, but it's extremely difficult to get the case done because you come into the courtroom presumed innocent. It can be done, but it is extremely difficult. If nothing else, the discussion about the judge's conduct has underlined the importance of how the judicial system is perceived, especially in high-profile cases where the outcome can exacerbate societal tensions around issues like race, guns, protests, vigilantism, and law and order. Our hope is that the court system and our judges, while human, will uphold its role of a neutral arbiter, that everybody can get a fair trial, the defendant and the people, and that we can arrive at a decision that we can all agree on was legitimate, said Mary D. Fan, a former federal prosecutor who teaches at the University of Wisconsin Law. When people have doubts about that impartiality, Fan said, it undermines our trust in the justice of the verdict. Rittenhouse, a former police youth cadet who faces life in prison if convicted on the most serious charges against him, used an AR-style semi-automatic rifle to kill 2 men and wounded a third during the night of protests against racial injustice in the summer of 2020. Rittenhouse is white, as were those who he shot. The killings followed the police shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man, during a domestic disturbance in Kenosha. So, I mean, it's interesting, because this is an op-ed that comes out of... They market as local news. This is an op-ed that comes out of Channel 3000 of Madison, but it does seem like it's coming off the Associated Press as well. But regardless off of this, I mean, this is biased hard in favor of the state, with the exception of Mr. Schrader. They want to see this conviction. But what does make a fair trial? I mean, evidentiary concerns off of this, and yes, to take the left's point of view off of this, the appearance of bias and the evil MAGA rally on the ringtone. I bet you a lot of people are going to have questions about this no matter which way it goes. But that's on 12 people right now. Speaking of 12, from WISN 12. Five Kenosha schools going virtual because of Kyle Rittenhouse trial. School district says it's not been advised of any existing imminent danger. Because of the crowds and proximity to the Kenosha County Courthouse, 5 Kenosha schools are going virtual for the rest of the week as a safety precaution. Those would be Brass Elementary, Frank Elementary, Harborside Academy, Ruther, and Washington Middle School. Washington? Really? Brass would even be a stretch. I'm not sure where Frank is. I'm not going to lie. I don't know where that one is. And I lived in that town for 10 years. I can't think of where Frank... Oh, I know where Frank is. It didn't dawn on me that was Frank. That's where I used to vote. Yeah, I'm not surprised, actually. Washington might be a stretch, but still. That's still on Sheridan, so possibly. While we have not been advised of any existing imminent danger, we feel this is best course of action to protect our students and staff during an uncertain time. We will continue to work closely with law enforcement and receive support as needed in the days and weeks ahead, the Kenosha Unified School District said in a message sent to parents. Families of schools moved to virtual learning may contact the Food Services Department at 262-359-6382 by 9:30 a.m. on Thursday and Friday to reserve a meal to be picked up at the Educational Center, 3600 52nd Street, between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. on the day it's reserved. Meals will be picked up at door 13, located on the north side of the building. So, regardless, and you know, it's been said by other commentators as well that even if this goes in the left's way, because this is a political trial at this point, even if this goes the left's way, there's going to be rioting, looting, and murder. It's going to be celebratory, but there is going to be rioting. They're going to get out in the streets, and they're going to burn the Wendy's, and they're not going to burn the Target, because that's way too far west for them. And I'm not surprised by the 5 schools that they listed because, well, like I said, Washington maybe. But Ruther is right across the park. Anybody who watches my streams, my on-the-ground streams, has seen Ruther numerous times. Because I go to the courthouse and I turn around and say, hey, there's Ruther, right there. That's where he was cleaning the graffiti. That is literally right across the street. Brass is not on Sheridan, but it's a little ways up the road from where the car source is. I don't know. That might be a little bit of a stretch. Because you've already gotten down far enough that you're to the car source 3. And then you've gone another 6 blocks west. And then another 2 blocks south after that because it's set far off of 63rd Street. But maybe. Washington, I don't think, has anything to worry about. Except for a lot of people looking up and saying, hey, there's an elementary school. We can get hostages. So maybe. Because that's right on Sheridan. But they also didn't get that far north when they were protesting last time either. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. From the Daily Wire. Judge slams media criticism of him, calls general coverage frightening. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. No video. Judge Schrader, who's overseeing the court case of Kyle Rittenhouse, responded to media criticism of himself. While addressing the court on Wednesday, he also slammed the general coverage of the trial as frightening. Schrader noted reports critical of his pretrial rulings, barring the prosecution from referring to the men shot by Rittenhouse as victims. The judge noted that the ruling was not unusual at all when the client is claiming self-defense. How would you like to be put on trial for a crime and the judge introduced the case to the jury by introducing you as the defendant and the person who is accusing you as the victim? Schrader explained, according to the Daily Caller. And then throughout the trial, have all the references to the complaining witnesses being the victim. Is that so difficult to use the term complaining witness instead of prejudging what the jury is here to determine, whether there is a victim and whether there was a crime committed? He further knocked down the press for claiming it was unusual for Rittenhouse, the defendant, to pick his own final 12 jurors by way of a raffle-style drum, the Daily Caller reported. Finally, I am now reading about how bizarre and unusual it was to have the defendant pick the numbers out of the tumbler yesterday, Schrader added, noting he began to practice following a case roughly 20 years ago, during which he believed it was for the best for defendants to pick the numbers so that they feel in control, and that he's never had a complaint about it before, but that some are dissatisfied with the procedure and want to undermine the result of the trial. Some of the other misinformation about the case is widespread, and you gentlemen are aware of it as I am. The judge slammed, speaking to defense and persecution. I'm somewhat astounded as it gets out to the general public, and I spoke about it the first day of the trial. The results of the trial should be open to public scrutiny, and people should have confidence in the outcome of the trial. It's just a shame that irresponsible statements are being made, Schrader said. I think it's shameful, some of the things that are being done to these 5 attorneys. When I talked about problems with the media when this trial started, were there in part because of grossly irresponsible handling of what comes out of this trial, the judge said. I will tell you. I think I'm going to think long and hard about live television in a trial again. Next time, I don't know. I've always been a firm believer in it because I think people should see what's going on, but what's being done is really quite frightening. So that's what we see off of that. And I mean, to be fair, and that's what I said. And I mentioned the girl on Twitter that I got involved in the long argument with. I wasn't really arguing, but because they were coming off of one of my comments, I was getting an alert every time her and the other guy were arguing back and forth, to the point that I almost muted the entire thread and said the fuck with it. But from this, we remember, I talked about it. The girl at the end looked at this and said, oh, I'm not even going to watch a trial where I know the outcome of this. Instead, she's just going to take small little bite-sized chunks that they picked out of the mainstream media that are pushed to a way to make this look a certain way, so that people will get out there and riot. And I do believe, and I talked about this with Follow her for it over on Twitter right before we went live. And I mentioned the fact that, yes, the media they have a legitimate case to try and get the riots out there, because that's going to distract from the debt ceiling. That's going to be something, it's going to be really easy to slip something in on the debt ceiling, if everybody is burning down cities across the country again. They want the riots because they want the coverage. From the Blaze. Joy Reid says Kyle Rittenhouse, Brett Kavanaugh are Karens who've used their male white tears to defend themselves as soon as they get caught. From Dave Urbanski. Still no video. Oh, yeah, we have video for this one. Leftist MSNBC host Joy Reid said Kyle Rittenhouse and Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh are Karens who've used their male white tears to defend themselves as soon as they get caught. Reid said on a TikTok video Tuesday that she saw similarities between the Rittenhouse trial, during which the 18-year-old defendant became emotional and began to cry on the witness stand last week, and the 2018 Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, in which Christine Blasey Ford accused then SCOTUS nominee of sexual assault, which occurred more than 3 decades prior. Kavanaugh cried his way through the hearings to make him a permanent member and associate justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Reid declared on her video, adding that his tears turned out to be more powerful than the tears of Ford, an alleged victim. Well, yeah, I mean, I can see similarities here, too. I mean, lots of stuff gets drug up out of context to protect the narrative and try to make sure that the person who either supported Trump or was appointed by Trump was evil. Let's listen to what Reid had to say. Give me just a sec. Let's drop the music here.
Rittenhouse trial. It reminded a lot of people of something, I just can't remember what it was. Oh, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, in which Brett Kavanaugh, who had been accused by a high school friend of committing sexual abuse of her, cried his way through the hearings to make him a permanent member and associate justice of the United States Supreme Court. And his tears turned out to be more powerful than the tears of Christine Blasey Ford, which were the tears of an alleged victim. But in America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like Green Waterworks. White men can get away with that too. And it has the same effect. Even as the right tries to politicize the idea that masculinity is being robbed from American men by multiculturalism and wokeism, they still want to be able to have their tears. So my friend Jahan Jones, who writes the brilliant The Read Out blog, wrote a great piece about this. And if you want to read it, you're going to be able to read it right here.
Oh, look, an advertisement for your writing. Go read my blog and get an advertisement and buy a subscription while you're over there, too. I mean, this is what it is, obviously, of course, and it's the left. And they are trying to politicize this as hard as they can. But, as I mentioned, I brought this from literally your mom over here, who points out the fact, and is absolutely right, this trial wasn't even about race until the media got involved. Because they want the race riots. I thought I commented on this. Maybe it got taken down. Maybe I'm Twitter suspended. Oh yeah, there it is. To which I replied, keep in mind, they, or the people that they protect, are likely looking forward to the riots. Debt ceiling comes up in 2.5 weeks. It could be really easy to slip something together in the dead of night under the cover of Riots 2.0. Which it would be. It would be insanely easy to come back out and do this. So, absolutely correct. And no, this wasn't about race until. This was about gun violence, essentially. Whether or not he was supposed to be there. But now BLM is out there, and there is the other end of it, which I've talked about from the beginning. From the night that it happened, I've talked about this. The National Guard was called in the next day after all this happened. And all the riots dissipated the next day after this happened. Now, I don't know if all the riots dissipated because the National Guard got called in and they put a stop to it, or if the riot stopped because one of the alleged victims shot back. Somebody went in there to go and defend the community and actually shot back instead of just bending over and fucking taking it. Like Chicago had done. Like Minneapolis had done. Like Philadelphia had done. Like Atlanta had done. Rather than just bending over and taking it like all those cities had done, somebody in that city, that one city, dared to shoot back. But yeah, good observation. From the BBC. This came to me by the Discord. Thank you, Ron Helton, for this one. It's an interesting take. I'm not sure how much water it actually holds, but it's an interesting take. From BBC News. I could have been a racist killer. From Stephanie Hegarty. In his late teens, Mike became a Nazi. Now only 6 years later, he's a supporter of BLM, and it worries him deeply to think of how close he came at the angry stage of his life to going out with his gun and shooting people. When Mike locked eyes for a brief moment with the man who had just fallen to the ground, he could tell that he was going to die. It was a frantic night in downtown Oakland, and the wind was sharp with the sting of tear gas as it whipped palm trees up in a frenzy. 3 days after the murder of George Floyd, protests in support of Black Lives Matter were breaking out across the U.S. Mike had been protesting with his girlfriend that night, and the police started firing rubber bullets and tear gas, and they decided to leave. They were walking back to their car along the streets filled with black smoke of burning rubbish bins. When they saw the white van pull up, they heard the gunshots. The van pulled away as a man in uniform slumped to the ground. Mike moved towards him, trying to remember the first aid training he had learned in the military. But a police car arrived, and the jittery gun-wielding officer jumped out and ordered Mike to leave. Later, he learned that Dave Patrick Underwood, a federal officer who had been guarding the courthouse, had died at the scene more than a year on. It still haunts Mike that he couldn't do more to save him. By coincidence, Mike had a connection to Underwood. He had been marching that day with members of his family. But he was also connected to the man who was later charged with his murder, Stephen Carrillo, a surgeon at the same California Air Force Base where Mike had enlisted just a few years earlier. And that wasn't all. Mike had a secret at home. At home in his wardrobe, there was a uniform made of green khaki fabric with Nazi symbol on the collar. Mike kept it hanging there to remind himself of the person he used to be, someone who wanted to go out and kill people. Like Carrillo, Mike had fallen down the rabbit hole of extremism and become a follower of America's violent far right. In the summer before Michael's final year at school, as he watched the first wave of BLM protests rolled out across the U.S., but taking part was the furthest thing from his mind. I thought they were Satan incarnate, he says. He had just met a new friend through a messaging group online. Paul, not his real name, invited Mike to visit his home, where he lived with his parents. It was an ordinary house on the quiet cul-de-sac in an upmarket suburb of a major U.S. city. They were meeting to shoot some propaganda videos. Paul opened the door in full Nazi uniform. He took Mike straight into his garage, and it was just like a clothing store for Nazis, Mike said. The walls were lined with weapons, ammunition cartridges, and miniguns. Paul had gathered a few other young men for the shoot. They had loaded guns and ammunition into a truck and drove out to some nearby hills. We were on a state park firing semi-automatic and automatic weapons, filming and running around in a Nazi uniform, Mike says. Then the park rangers appeared. Paul was annoyed. He was kind of standing there, and he's not really having any of it. He's not wanting to listen to the government authority telling him that he cannot do what he thinks he's entitled to do, which is make videos and pretend to be the were marked. The rangers confiscated all the guns that they could see, but the boys had hidden some of them and just loaded them back into the truck once they were alone again. Then they went back to Paul's house and hung out with his parents, still wearing their uniforms. Mike was 17 and said he'd become the perfect vessel for toxic extremism. He spent his childhood in a rural, small, mostly white town. Days were spent kayaking on the lake or cycling around town with his tight-knit group of friends. Adults and kids would hang out together, and dinner parties and barbecues were spontaneous. It was a place where everyone knew everybody, but Mike's stepfather was an alcoholic who could lash out violently, and when Mike was 12, his mother got a divorce and moved the children to another part of the country. Suddenly, Mike was living in a sweltering, multiracial urban neighborhood, and he hated it. There were people who didn't look like anything that I had ever seen before. The food was different, the water tasted different, everything was just completely different. They were also much less well off now. The stepfather, whom Mike had been close to despite his violent outburst, never kept a promise to visit the children. All this made Mike angry, and he found an outlet for that anger in the alt-right. So, this is straight up propaganda off of this, and one of the big differences between the two is the people, Mike, Paul, and them, when they went out to do their propaganda videos, went out into a remote area, far, far away from everybody else, probably used illegal weapons, probably should be in jail for that, but didn't hurt anybody. And when the radical far left decided that they wanted to come out and make a propaganda video, they burned historic buildings with people inside sometimes, police stations, and attacked and assaulted anybody who tried to put out their fires. There is a difference. There is a big difference. But thank you, Ron, for that. Alright, let's do some good news. Well, some kind of good news here, starting with this one here from the Associated Press to start off with. The propaganda in this particular tweet, and we'll actually go back and read the article, but the propaganda in this tweet, another thing that they're trying to do, they're trying to push out to make sure that it's those evil far-righters, those ones who are making it so you can't be safe from the evil, scary virus. They're trying to prolong the virus, don't you know? A GOP-dominated court has been picked at random to consider the fate of President Biden's mandate that larger employers require workers to be vaccinated. Republican-led states, businesses, and conservative groups are challenging the rule. Evil. So let's read from the Associated Press. GOP majority court chosen to consider the Biden vaccine mandate. From Jeff Mulvihill. Challenges to President Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for private employers will be consolidated in the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, a panel dominated by judges appointed by Republicans. The Cincinnati-based court was selected Tuesday in a random drawing using a ping pong ball, a process employed when challenges to certain federal agency actions are filed in multiple courts. The selection could be good news for those challenging the administration's vaccine requirement, which includes officials in 27 Republican-led states, employers, and several conservative and business organizations. They argue that the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration does not have the authority to impose the mandate. The challenges, along with some from unions, said the vaccine mandate didn't go far enough, were made this month in 12 circuit courts. Under an arcane system, it was up to the clerk of judicial panel on multi-district litigation to select ping pong ball from a bin to choose where the case would be heard. Oh no, you're right, Associated Press. The only proper way to do this would be to send it to the Ninth Circuit, the most liberal court in the country. It was a favorable outcome for Republicans. 11 of the 16 full-time judges in the Sixth Circuit were appointed by Republican presidents, accounting for one of the Republican-appointed judges, Elaine, who often sides with judges appointed by Democrats, and adding senior judges who are semi-retired but still hear cases. The split is 19-9 in favor of Republicans. 6 of the full-time judges were appointed by former President Trump. Another court, where a majority of judges were nominated by Republicans, the New Orleans-based Fifth Circuit, issued a ruling that put the mandate on hold. It's not clear whether the court will hear the case, will act as the Fifth Circuit did, and side quickly with Republican challengers, but legal experts have become increasingly concerned in recent years about the politicization of both federal and state courts, raising questions about whether justice is fairly administered or dispensed through a partisan lens. Allison Orr Larson, a professor at William and Mary Law School, co-authored a study published this year that found a growing partisanship in federal judicial decisions. For decades, the study found that rulings in the cases where all judges in circuit weighed in generally were not decided along party lines based on the presidents who appointed the judges. We did see a concerning spike starting in 2018 that led us to wring our hands, Larson said in an interview. The increasing partisanship of a branch of government that is supposed to be blind to partisan politics was seen in judges appointed by presidents of both parties, but Larson said it's not clear why that was or whether it will be the last. It's evil. Those damn Republicans. They got their way. It had to be biased for them. The only way it would have been fair is if it would have gone in the Ninth Circuit. That would have said that yes, the state has absolute authority to make you take something in your arm. Alright, let's keep going. Another one from Oklahoma. Defense official reportedly says if the Oklahoma National Guard doesn't comply with COVID vaccine requirements, they will no longer be maintaining national recognition. Thus, state will no longer have a National Guard, but rather a militia. VOA's Pentagon correspondent. Based. Miss Sapphire right off the bat. Good luck maintaining a militia when the federal government takes back all the equipment and property it owns. Reading from The Hill on this, Pentagon digs in on vaccine mandate for Oklahoma National Guard, from Ellen Mitchell. Oklahoma National Guard troops will not be allowed to avoid the military's COVID-19 vaccine mandate, the Pentagon says. But it is unclear who will hold them accountable to the rule and what punishments, if any, will be handed down. A Defense Department official on Wednesday reiterated the department's message that it has the authority to mandate vaccines for troops in the name of medical readiness, a response to Oklahoma leaders who have stood firm in their vows that they will not enforce the vaccine mandate for their Guard members. Lloyd Austin can establish a medical readiness requirement that applies to members of the National Guard, the official told reporters, adding that if the members fail to maintain such readiness, it could jeopardize their status in the National Guard. Whether or not a governor enforces that under his or her own authority is another matter, but it in no way relieves members of the National Guard from compliance with medical readiness requirements that established by the Secretary of Defense and the Secretaries of the military departments. Austin announced in August that the coronavirus shot would be mandatory for all troops, and in mid-September placed the mandate into effect, though the deadline to receive the inoculation varies by branch. The National Guard's deadline is June 30th, but the Air Force and Army require Guard airmen and troops to comply by November 2nd and December 15th, respectively, to allow them to be mobilized for federal orders. The Oklahoma National Guard went rogue, however, when earlier this month it rejected the mandate after Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt unexpectedly ousted the previous head. In their place, Stitt appointed Army Brigadier General Thomas Mancino to serve as the state's Adjutant General and National Guard Commander. He then directed Mancino to pen up a memo that stipulated that no member of the Oklahoma National Guard will be required to get vaccinated. At the center of the issue are two separate laws, Title 32 of the U.S. Code, which stipulates that the state or territory's governor holds the power to mobilize their Guard members unless those troops and airmen are activated for a federal mission, and Title 10 of the U.S. Code, where the president can mobilize the Guard, placing them under federal authority. Stitt's reasoning is that as the head of the state security, he holds the power to enforce policies while troops are on duty. So, a lot of stuff to look at here, a lot of stuff to think about. And I think it's going to be incredibly based. If Oklahoma goes to a militia-style system, kick more federal involvement out of this. And hey, here's another thing, is that the Oklahoma National Guard doesn't have to worry about being called up to go do something stupid in fucking DC. They can stay at home and do their citizen soldier projects there. I think that's kind of cool. All right, let's talk about Gosar. House votes to censure and remove Gosar from committees over violent video targeting AOC and Biden. From Annie Grayer and Claire Ferran. I'm going to move this one back up to the top. The House voted on Wednesday to approve a resolution that censures Paul Gosar and strips him of his 2 committee assignments, the first time a sitting House member has been censured in more than 10 years. The action led by the House Democrats represents a major rebuke to the Arizona Republican for posting a photoshopped anime video to social media showing him appearing to kill Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and attacking President Joe Biden. For review, and for more cringe, let's review what this video looked like. Just in case you forgot, I apologize for more of the cringe and everything else that went along with that, but just in case you forgot what it was that we were looking at. The action, led by House Democrats, represents a major rebuke to the Arizona Republican for posting a photoshopped anime video to social media showing him appearing to kill Democrat Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Twitch, and attacking President Joe Biden. Dementia. The final vote was 223 to 207. Republicans Adam Kinzinger of Illinois and Liz Cheney of Wyoming voted with all the Democrats to censure resolution. Republican Rep. David Joyce of Ohio voted present, meaning he took no position either way. Kinzinger and Cruz got into it on Twitter over this one too, going back and forth off of this. I didn't put it on the stack, but I should have it up on the stack. My response to it. If I can find it again. Yes, this was mine. With Kinzinger, because he's going back and forth with Cruz. Yeah, this goes all the way back out. Is there Elaine for Liz Cheney in the New Hampshire in 2024? Because she might go and run in New Hampshire now if she's going to get kicked out of Wyoming. Ted Cruz says, yes, it's called the Democrat primary. And Liz Cheney fires back. I know you're posturing for the secessionist vote, Ted, but my party, the Republican Party, saved the Union. You swore an oath to the Constitution. Act like it. Kinzinger, of course. Damn, son, Liz brought the heat on you. To which Ted Cruz replies back out, these two need to hurry up and get to their bottom-rated MSNBC show. And Kinzinger, Senator, you've been given a huge position to lead and tell people the truth, yet you have squandered it on lies and abused the patriotism of those who trusted you. I have zero regrets. Will you? To me, to be less subtle than Ted was, I pointed out, let me be less subtle. You can kiss Democrat ass all you want, and your district is still going to disappear. Because remember, they districted Adam Kinzinger out, one of the biggest congressional districts in the country. By the way. And they just got rid of it with the snap of a finger. You can suck that big veiny donkey dick all you want, and they're still getting rid of your district. Gosar took down the video after facing criticism, but did not apologize. About an hour after being censured, Gosar retweeted a tweet praising him that also included the video. House Democrats have made clear that they believe he must face significant consequences for his actions, while many Republicans have argued that Democrats are setting a dangerous precedent that could be used against them in the future. The episode underscores and threatens to worsen the rising tensions and deepening distrust between Democrats and Republicans in Congress. A censure resolution is the most severe punishment in the House, and stripping a member of committee assignments deprives them of a powerful platform to influence legislation and give voice to constituent priorities. And that's what I want to focus on with this before we look at the other cringe and the other videos that goes with this. And that was the title of this video, because not only did he get the censure is fucking worthless. A censure in Congress, in spite of the fact that they make a big deal out of the fact that they did it, is essentially a, oh no, you better not do it again. No, bad boy, bad boy. It's a swat on the ass and then you're free again. It's a slap on the wrist. It's nothing. I think you have to pay a fine that comes directly out of your congressional salary. I think is what it is. But I don't know about that. But there are other people that tell me it's just a simple reprimand and there's nothing else to worry about with it. But see, this is the second time we've also heard about the stripping of committee assignments. Now, if McCarthy had come down because of this and stripped committee assignments, I would think, okay, well, this will be cool, this will be great, this will be fine. The problem that I have with this is that, just like in the case with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I still believe is a plant, by the way, but just like with the case with Marjorie Taylor Greene, we're sitting in a situation where we look at this and we see the off party stripping a member of the other party of their committee assignments. In both cases, Democrats stripping Republicans of committee assignments. Never in the history of the Congress has the off party had the decision over the other party's committee assignments. That is to be by the leader of that party's caucus in the House. That's what that has always been from the start of it. If Ilhan Omar runs her mouth and says some stupid shit, it would be on Chuck Schumer to strip her of committee assignments. If Paul Gosar makes a super cringy fucking boomer video full of military references, that's on Kevin McCarthy. Why did I say Chuck Schumer? It wouldn't be Chuck Schumer. It would be, who's the majority leader in the House? I can see his stupid face. I can't think of his name. Steny Hoyer. Yeah, it would be on Steny Hoyer to do that. To pull Ilhan Omar out of her committee assignments. And for Gosar or Marjorie Taylor Greene, that was supposed to be, it ideologically and realistically, it's supposed to be on Kevin McCarthy to do that. But now we've had two instances where Democrats have removed committee assignments from Republicans, essentially making them just yes or no votes. And if this is a standard that we're going to apply going forward, then this is going to be an interesting midterm, especially if Republicans take back the House. This is going to be a very, very, very interesting midterm indeed if Republicans take back the House. Because Cortez, Omar, Tlaib, Bowman, none of them are going to have committee assignments. Presley, Pelosi, if she's back in the House. She's not going to have committee assignments. Because now they can go back and do this. The precedent has been set. The majority party, by a simple majority vote, can just take committee assignments away from people. The resolution, approved by the House, will remove Gosar from the House Oversight and Reform Committee, which Ocasio-Cortez also serves on, and the Natural Resources Committee. We cannot have a member joking about murdering each other or threatening the President of the United States. Really? Were you just demented and senile for 4 of the last 5 years, Nancy Pelosi? Disguising death threats in a video doesn't make it any less real, she said. It's a sad day for the House of Representatives, but a necessary day. House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy accused Democrats of hypocrisy, arguing that they have not responded to members of their own party in the same way. Of course they haven't. McCarthy went on to suggest that Republicans will use the same standard that has been set to rebuke Democrats if they retake the majority. Under the Pelosi precedent, all the members that I have mentioned earlier will need approval from a majority to keep the positions in the future. So, that's how that happened. And that, yes, that is the most interesting side of this, is what happens now. Now that the opposite party can make decisions for a member's party. What happens now? There was a reason it was set up the way that it was. There was a lot of video clipping and a lot of fun stuff that went along with this as well. Let's listen to one from the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch.
When he says that this action is unprecedented. What I believe is unprecedented is for a member of House leadership of either party to be unable to condemn incitement of violence against a member of this body. It is sad. It is a sad day in which a member who leads a political party in the United States of America cannot bring themselves to say that issuing a depiction of murdering a member of Congress is wrong, and instead decides to, when he says that this action is unprecedented.
And Josie is absolutely correct on this. What a malignant narcissist. But I mean, we see the same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this mysterious photo here that didn't show up until after she got elected. With as much attention that was paid to Georgia, with all eyes on Georgia the way that they were, we didn't see this. We didn't hear about this during the campaign season. This should have been front page MSDNC news. And yet, she got elected and she got put on to her congressional committees while this was out there. Hence, by the way, why I believe that she's a plant. Because this was able to be completely ignored until she was seated and Hong Kong raised the articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. It's just too convenient for her to be there. Lauren Boebert got in on this as well. From Fox News, Rep. Boebert raises Swalwell Chinese spy scandal on House floor, sleeping with the enemy. From Jessica Chasmar. I believe I need to have this up here. Yes, I think I do. But we won't go into that one just yet. Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado called Eric Swalwell of California for his past relationship with a suspected Chinese spy while listing off inappropriate actions of Democrats on the House floor on Wednesday. Boebert mentioned Swalwell while defending Paul Gosar as House Democrats moved to censure him and strip him of committee assignments for posting an animated video depicting violence against the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch. Oh, we have video of this one. I know we had video of the Jihad Squad one. I didn't realize we had video of this one here. Hey, let's watch it.
Democrat policies are so pathetic and have done so poorly that the left has nothing else to do but troll the internet looking for ways to get offended and then try to target members and strip them of their committees. This is a dumb waste of the House's time. But since the Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists. A Democrat chairwoman incited further violence in the streets outside of a courthouse. And then the cherry on top. My colleague and 3-month presidential candidate from California, who is on the Intelligence Committee, slept with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy. Let me say that again. A member of Congress who receives classified briefings was sleeping with the enemy. This is unacceptable, and this would never
Gentlemen,
be...
time's expired. Gentleman from Florida.
Madam.
Okay, there was a lot of information pushed into 74 seconds here. Let's try that one more time.
Democrat policies are so pathetic and have done so poorly that the left has nothing else to do but troll the internet looking for ways to get offended and then try to target members and strip them of their committees. This is a dumb waste of the House's time. But since the Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists. A Democrat chairwoman incited further violence in the streets outside of a courthouse. And then the cherry on top. My colleague and 3-month presidential candidate from California, who is on the Intelligence Committee, slept with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy. Let me say that again. A member of Congress who receives classified briefings was sleeping with the enemy. This is unacceptable, and this would never be...
time's expired. Gentleman from Florida.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Swalwell's ties to suspected Chinese spy Christine Fang, also known as Fang Fang, were first reported by Axios last December and prompted House Republicans to draft a resolution to remove Swalwell from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. But the resolution was tabled by the Democrats. Axios had reported that Fang targeted up-and-coming politicians, including Swalwell, and that federal investigators alerted Swalwell of Fang's behavior in 2015. Swalwell then cut off all ties with Fang and has not been accused of any wrongdoing, the report said. Swalwell fights back and says, "Weird, if I'd done anything wrong, the FBI would have raided my house. They didn't," and went as far as to issue a statement saying, "I did nothing wrong. But yesterday, they did raid the home of Lauren Boebert's campaign manager. They're always projecting." And we'll be talking about that in just a moment, too. But that's what we see off of that. And a little... No, this is probably the same clip off of here. Let's listen.
The Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists.
And of course, it's Aaron Rupar, which, if I remember correctly, he is MSDNC, but A.T. Rupar. Boebert labels Ilhan Omar a member of the Jihad Squad and smears her with unfounded conspiracy theories. Dude, it's public record that she married her husband. I don't know why you call this an unfounded conspiracy theory. It's public record. It is in the Minnesota public record. This is not a mystery. You can look in the Minnesota public record and find the fact that, yes, she's married to somebody who, at the very, very least, has the exact same name as her brother. And sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And of course, we have trending over here. Ilhan Omar and Swalwell deny the allegations made about them by Representative Lauren Boebert during a House debate to censure Representative Paul Gosar on Wednesday. Now, Boebert, less so than Green, but Boebert also gives me very planty vibes. You know, that whole thing of says the right thing in the exact right way at the right time, every time, like she's reading from a script. Not as much as Green does, but still, I'm on the fence about Boebert. I really am. From Newsweek. During Gosar censure hearing, Rep. Boebert calls Ilhan Omar member of the Jihad Squad. From Ayla Slisko. Representative Lauren Boebert called Representative Ilhan Omar a Jihad Squad member, while the House considered censuring Congressman Paul Gosar on Wednesday. The Colorado Republican made the remarks before the House voted to censure Gosar for sharing a doctored anime video on social media that showed him slaughtering New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez with a sword for turning the weapon towards President Joe Biden. Ocasio-Cortez and Omar, who is a Muslim, are both core members of the group of progressive lawmakers that is commonly referred to as the Squad. Omar, a Minnesota Democrat, is a naturalized U.S. citizen, having arrived in this country as a child after her Somali family was granted asylum in 1995. The Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, Boebert said during the House hearing. The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists. Boebert was referencing Omar's campaign paying E Street Group, a political consultancy firm co-owned by her husband, Tim Minette, $2.9 million to work on her 2020 re-election campaign. She also referenced an unsubstantiated claim that Omar married her. Nice, Newsweek. Unsubstantiated claim. It is in the public record. That Omar married her brother for immigration purposes, as well as controversial remarks that the Congresswoman has made regarding Israel and Palestine. Omar's office declined to comment on Boebert's remark when contacted by Newsweek. However, Omar herself issued a scathing condemnation of Boebert on Twitter shortly after the censure vote was completed. Luckily, my dad raised me right. Otherwise, I might have gone to the floor to talk about this insurrectionist who sleeps with a pervert. I am grateful I was raised to be a decent human and not a deprived person who shamefully defecates and defiles the House of Representatives. Praise Allah! So, well, House of Representatives catfight on aisle 2. From Fox News, Ilhan Omar claims Boebert defecates Congress after Boebert's brother husband dig. From Peter Hassan. Democrat Rep. Ilhan Omar on Wednesday night claimed that Republican Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert defecates and defiles the House of Representatives and accused her husband of being a pervert. Omar's broadside at Boebert came after the Republican Congresswoman referred to Omar as a member of the Jihad Squad and referenced an unconfirmed accusation that Omar married her brother. Boebert mentioned Omar while attacking California Rep. Eric Swalwell and other Democrats in defense of Arizona Republican Paul Gosar, who was censured by the House and stripped of his committee assignments on Wednesday. I said what I said, Quest. I said what I said. You take it as what you want to take it as. The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists, Boebert said. Omar's swipe at Boebert's husband appears to refer to a 2004 arrest. I don't know anything about this one. GOP Rep Boebert and husband racked up arrests in her district. This is from January 16th. Let's see. Back in June 2015, Boebert was cuffed for disorderly at a country music fest near Grand Junction, Colorado, after police said she attempted to interfere with the arrests of minors, busted for underage drinking, and encouraged the accused to run off. Boebert said the revelers had not been read their Miranda rights and their arrest was illegal. Let's see. Careless driving. Boebert's future husband, Jason, who also had brushes with the law enforcement in January of 2004, he was arrested after allegedly exposing his penis to two women in a bowling alley, according to an arrest affidavit. Boebert, then age 17 and known as Laura Opal Roberts, was also there. Jason Boebert pleaded guilty to public indecency and lewd exposure, earning himself 4 days in jail and 2 years probation. In February of 2004, he was booked on domestic violence charge against Boebert. He did unlawfully strike, shove, or kick and subjected her to physical contact. A spokesperson for the Garfield Associates county clerk told the Post they had been dating at the time. So a teenager whipped his cock out at a bowling alley and did 4 days for it. Yeah, that's exactly the same as committing immigration fraud to get your husband or your brother into the country. I said what I said. So, that's what we see coming off of that. Alright, what else do we have here? Minutes after being censured, Rep Gosar retweets offending AOC video. Holy shit, it's 9 already. From Ayla Slisko. Representative Paul Gosar retweeted a doctored anime video depicting him killing Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D-Twitch, only minutes after the House censured him over the video. Gosar had previously deleted the controversial video, which shows him slaughtering Jeez! The propaganda is real with Newsweek today. Holy fuck. Slaughtering Ocasio-Chavez before turning the blade towards President Joe Biden. Refusing to apologize, but he explained that he had self-censored due to a sense of compassion for those who genuinely felt offense. However, Gosar's position appeared to have changed quickly after the House voted largely along party lines to censure him on Wednesday. Based? Gosar retweeted conservative podcaster Elijah Schaefer's tweet of the video within an hour of the House vote. The new tweet was captioned by Schaefer, "Really well done. We love Dr. Paul Gosar. Don't we, folks?" I don't really care. He's an obscure representative from an obscure district in Arizona, who's only famous because he went and campaigned with the Proud Boys. So I don't really care, but it's funny how just up in arms they got over this thing. How crazy they got over this. But reading on with Boebert's arrest, or campaign manager arrest here. Let me do this one first, from Colorado Politics. FBI raids home of Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters in election data breach investigation. Federal, state, and local authorities searched the homes of Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters and 3 of her associates on Tuesday as part of the investigation into accusations the elected official was involved in voting machine security breaches, according to an official who helped conduct the searches. The FBI carried out a court-ordered search of Peters' home in Mesa County early Tuesday, leaving her terrified. Peters said Tuesday night in an appearance on Lindell TV, an online channel run by MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, a Trump supporter and QAnon person. We executed 4 federally court-authorized operations today to gather evidence in connection with the investigation into the Mesa County Clerk and Recorder's Office, DA Dan Rubenstein told Colorado Politics. We did so with assistance from the DA's office from the 21st Judicial District, the Attorney General's office, and the FBI. Weird. They always get these big midnight FBI raids. And they're not doing it, by the way. They're not doing it for reasons of that they want to actually look for evidence or justice. They could come in and knock with a search warrant if they wanted to come back and do that. They're doing this, kick in the door, guns blazing, everything going, to terrify people. This is domestic terrorism. But Ed, it's the government that's doing it, so it can't be domestic terrorism. Well, let's see. You're inflicting terror in somebody for political purposes. Johnny, what do we call that? It's always Twitch, by the way. So that happened. Plus, from the Daily Beast, sorry for the eye aids of the Daily Beast, onto the caption Trumpland. These propaganda assholes, I swear. Lauren Boebert's ex-manager also targeted in FBI raid on MAGA election clerk. From Kelly Wheel and Will Summer. Oh, this is members only. Hold on, I can fix that. Oh, it's got to load the whole fucking thing too. Alright. It is after 9, so we do need to do thing that I like and thing that I hate and get on out of here for the day, which would, of course, would be the reasonable thing. I am not prepared for thing I like and thing that I hate because I got up really late and, well, fell into it. So, I don't have thing that I like today. I really don't. I got a couple things that I hate, though. So we could do this as well. Thing that I hate today, this video. They're coming back, they're trying to do the Schoolhouse Rock thing off of this, and Libs of TikTok says it absolutely correctly. What in the fresh hell is this? Deficit spending is free and good. That's perfect. So let's just watch this little short 30-second video.
We got infrastructure, passed in the house. Time for build back better, that's what I'm about. So Mr. President, Madam Speaker, House Democrats, let's do this, let's do this. I'm a bill with critical and historic investments in child care, health care, climate care, immigration, and more. And it's all paid for, so come on, let's do this. You better pass me. We got infrastructure.
That is cringier than I thought it was going to be, even. Wow. Deficit spending is free and good. Bow down to Baphomet. And, of course, AA, regular human. It's not deficit spending, it's paid for with tax increases. It's not a cult, folks. It's not a cult. Alright. Since I'm completely unprepared at this point, and we get to go off with this and do this whole thing, let's head out of here for the day. And finish out the show. So, change up the track. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted with us in the live chat throughout the day. It was kind of a quiet day, you guys, but thanks everybody still for who came back out here and did this. And we'll head out of here for the day. We'll come back tomorrow. By the way, if you were just lurking, make sure you get at least one message into the chat, because I write the names down of everybody who chats in the live chat, and I give a special thank you on Fridays. So I do want to make sure that if you are here, that you come in here and I give you a special thank you, because you rock. Also, make sure you're spreading around the GoFundMe for the new webpage. That'd be pretty cool of you if you guys would go back and do that. And make sure you guys are going and checking out the other shows on the Turn Some Pages Productions Network. We'll be back here tomorrow with more contemporary, and we will be back here on Monday with the Red Net Show because of the jury duty thing that got pushed back a week here. So definitely come back and check us out for that, and we will figure out and play by ear what is happening after that as well. And until then, we'll see you next time. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.